back at Discover Mongolia. As Chris mentioned, I think this will be my 8th or 9th year here. Just a little background on the company before I get into the main topic today. We are listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We have a market capitalization of $63 million. We have a number of well-known major institutional shareholders in Canada and internationally, which include Xstrata, which owns about 6% of our company, and is active here in Mongolia on our coal exploration. Our key projects include a major coking coal project in eastern Canada called the Donkin Project. This is a project that we just completed a pre-feasibility on. Xstrata issued that in June of 2011. And this project has a $265 million net present value for our 25% interest. It's strategically located on the coast of eastern Canada. It's among the lowest in transportation and operating costs in the industry, and it's now going through the final permitting stage. Here in Mongolia, our flagship metals project is the Zuun Mod project. We also released a 43-101 report on this in June of this year. And it now has 212,000 tons of molybdenum and 265,000 tons of copper. This is one of the largest molybdenum deposits in Asia, and it's located just 200 kilometers from the China-Mongolia border. On the exploration side, we have an exciting new gold discovery that I'm going to show you a few slides on here in a moment, called the Nomen Project. We just announced this new gold discovery last night. We also have a new copper-silver discovery on the Zuun Mod license at a prospect we call Hubenhar. And we have a strategic alliance, which I referred to, with Xstrata here for coal exploration. We also have a number of royalties and equity interests in industrial mineral projects in North America, as well as a listed company on the Vancouver Stock Exchange. The Nomen discovery was made in the last couple of months. This project sits between our Zuun Mod project, and some of you may be familiar with Voyager's new Cougar discovery. It's about halfway between those two deposits, or two prospects in southwestern Mongolia. We drilled a few shallow holes on the far right of that blue area that you see, and came up with some high-grade gold, about half an ounce over 0.5 meters. And that caused us to extend a wide-space soil sampling program over about a 7-kilometer by 6-kilometer area. And as you can see, we've had a very intense gold anomaly show up in the center of that area, with soil samples running up to 1.4 grams. And remember, this is spaced at about 400 meters, so a very wide spacing for such high soil anomalies. So we immediately had teams in there prospecting and chip sampling. And within the center of that prospect, of what we now call Altan Nar, we've identified a series of gold-bearing epithermal veins, in some cases quite wide in terms of parallel veining. And I'll show you one of these in more detail. This would be the heart of that soil anomaly, and those samples you see on the right-hand side are chip samples and grab samples. And we took 20. They averaged 3.4 grams per ton. They run up to 19.2 grams per ton. And as you can see, the width of the zone there is about 108 meters, and we've traced it to date over about 400 meters. 400 meters north of this prospect is our 1.5 gram soil sample, and 400 meters south of this, we've found up to 41 grams in a epithermal vein. So this is all just been reported last night. We're very excited about this. Tomorrow morning, I will be giving more detail on this in a technical presentation at 9 a.m. in the room just off to the left of the entrance. So with that, let me move on to the main topic of today. And I will try to cover a lot of detail in here. Some of it I'll just touch on, but you'll have access to this presentation after the fact if you wish to get into more detail. So I'll begin with an overview of our experience in the country. I'll follow it up with a bit of geology, look at the licensing process, transportation infrastructure, manpower, touch on the investment environment, and then sum things up before I invite John Lyons up for a few minutes to discuss briefly our community development program. Myself and Chris Cowan have been working in Mongolia since late 1996. We have over 30 years of combined experience in the country. We formed our company, Erdene, in 2002 to focus on Mongolian metals exploration. We followed that with the acquisition of Gallon Minerals, which was owned by Mohammed Al Fayed. And he had an inventory of metals and uranium properties that we worked on post that period. The acquisition was mainly focused on Zoom Mod, which is our flagship metals project. In 2006, we partnered with Xstrata on coal in the country and have continued that exploration up to the current time. We employ approximately 14 people full-time, 100 seasonal, or up to 100 seasonal. And we're currently focused both on the coal and the metal side on the southwestern part of the country. For those that aren't familiar with the history, I think it's interesting to walk through this briefly. It was about 17 years ago that foreign investors were first invited into this country, and that included companies like QGX and Rio Tinto. And Magma, of course, was part of that as well, and they discovered Oyu Tolgoi in 95 and 96. And that and the new mineral law that came out in 97 really kicked off that first wave of exploration. But it was brief. In late 1998, the industry went into a downturn led by the Asia crisis, low gold prices, and an unfavorable gold tax that was imposed by the government here in Mongolia. So the industry was largely dormant until 2001, July, I believe it was, when Ivanhoe first hit the deeps at Oyu Tolgoi. And that prompted the second exploration wave and our return to the country at that point and the startup of Erdene. That wave continued for a number of years and included Cameco at Boru and now Centerra going into production. Kemerton Obu reached commercial production. And perhaps the most significant event, Rio Tinto buying into Oyu Tolgoi for $303 million in 2006. Unfortunately, again, we had that come to a fairly rapid end in terms of exploration due to the Parliament passing the windfall profit tax and also the designation of strategic deposits. Exploration reduced significantly and many exited during that period. We had some M&A activity over the following couple of years. Areva paid $90 million for East Asia's uranium project, and Kerry Holdings and MCS bought QGX. In 2008, the Mineral Authority froze new license issuances, and although that was opened up periodically, it's effectively been 3 years since the Mineral Authority has functioned properly in terms of license issuance. Thankfully, in late 2009, the government repealed the windfall profits tax and signed the OT investment agreement, and that really prompted the return to exploration and major developments commenced production in 2010. And here we are in 2011 with a wave of new junior companies and significant exploration underway once again, unfortunately limited by supply. Now let me touch on some of the risks, rewards, and challenges that we've experienced here in Mongolia. From a political perspective, it's been 5 parliamentary elections since the 1990s, and 3 of those have seen extreme changes in government. The period before election, over the last couple of elections, has certainly caused politicization of the mining issues, and I expect we'll see some of that again as we lead into the election in 2012. From a geopolitical perspective, I think most are aware that Mongolia is heavily influenced by its 2 neighbors, and China and Russia come into play on almost every major infrastructure and major mining development. Language has always been an issue for foreign investors in the country. The difficulty in learning the Mongolian language has been a challenge. We've certainly made an effort in our group to have expats make the effort, and as you'll see with John Lyons, who will join us here at the end of my presentation, we've succeeded in some cases. Experienced workforce. One of the things that surprised me the most when I first came to Mongolia was the detail and the quality of mapping and the experience of the geologists that we worked with. And that's still there today, and we benefit from that greatly. Community and culture. We have the privilege of working in a country that has one of the most unique cultures globally. And that's something that we take to heart when we're out there working in the community, and certainly look to evolve culture in our activities on the community development side. Bureaucracy. I think you often hear corruption mentioned more than you do bureaucracy, but I could say in our experience in 14 years here, it's been bureaucracy that's been our biggest hurdle. Just to get small permits in place, certainly to get a mining license took us 2 years, but this is probably the biggest issue we face in operating through the government is bureaucracy. On the positive side, I'm not sure there's anywhere else in the world where you could go out and find world-class deposits, outcropping in an Arctic terrain. It's a pretty exciting place to work from a geological perspective. Some of the most hospitable people I've ever met in my experience in working internationally. The exposure is excellent from a geological perspective, and although you would think there'd be a significant amount of exploration take place given the attention that Mongolia's had over the last several years, it really is just some brief periods of detailed exploration, and most of that's been property specific. There's been very little regional exploration take place. Moving on to the geology and mineral deposits. For those that aren't familiar, this slide gives you a bit of a lay of the land in terms of where the major deposits are located. You see Asgard up in the northwest part of the country, that's a major silver deposit. Moving down into the South Gobi, the three green stars are the major porphyry projects, Zunmod, Oyu-Tolgoi, and Sagan-Savarga. Of course, the heart of the metallurgical coking coal production is Oyu-Tolgoi, Naran-Sukat, and Tavan-Tolgoi, which you see in the southern part. And then moving more up into the north and northeast, Erdenet, of course, is the largest copper producer in the Mongolia-China region. Borio is located in that same general area. A major gold producer up until recently as it moves into the shutdown phase, but a very successful gold operation for many years. And then in the north, you have the Dornod uranium deposit. The coal deposits, I won't go through these in detail, but you can see, in addition to the black ones I showed on the previous map, which are the active producers, the blue represent the potential producers. And you can see the trace of the proposed rail line from the Mongolian government that follows the trend of the major coal deposit. There's no accident in that.